The first seasonal downpour had just ended, leaving smeared trails of water across the gray stone pavement outside the District 9 shopping center. A light breeze passed through, carrying the scent of damp grass and a faint aroma of fruit from a small stall named Green Seed, a modest branch in a juice bar chain once hailed as the bottled embodiment of kindness. But Ethan Wells knew better. Reputation alone couldn't protect the soul of a brand when rot began from within, from the way people treated one another. A black SUV pulled up by the curb, its tinted windows reflecting the cracked edges of the tiled walkway. Ethan sat in the back seat, his solemn gaze fixed on his phone screen. A new email had just arrived from the anonymous customer feedback system. The subject line was cold. "I'm never coming back to this store again." Ethan opened the message, his fingers trembling slightly, not from shock, but from a weary familiarity with disappointment. This was the seventh email in under 3 weeks, all from the same location. Green Seed, branch number 24. To be honest, I've never felt treated like a beggar just for paying with a few small bills. He closed his eyes for a moment. No justification would be worth sending. No apology could mend the damage caused when his store, once a symbol of friendliness, made an elderly person feel unworthy of being served. Ethan removed his sunglasses, loosened his tie, and shrugged off the crisp white shirt that had become a default uniform in every boardroom meeting. In its place, a charcoal gray hoodie, worn jeans, and sneakers that had once walked countless miles carrying crates of oranges during the early startup days. No one in the store recognized him, and that was exactly what he needed. The glass door opened with a soft click, the scent of mango, passion fruit, and beet juice mixed with freshly white plastic, giving off a clean yet cold atmosphere. No one greeted him. A girl cleaning the juicer, hair tied in a high bun, green uniform sleeves frayed at the edges, glanced up for a second, then looked back down and continued her task. At the cashier counter, a young man named Jaden Cruz was glued to his phone. One earbud in, his fingers lazily tapped on the POS screen. Ethan queued behind an elderly woman. She wore a faded wool sweater, hands trembling as she dug through her purse. Coins clinked onto the counter. Crumpled bills were smoothed and stacked carefully. "Just the smallest cup, dear," she said, her voice as soft as mist. "Not too much ice." Jaden didn't look up. He just flipped at the POS screen and let out an exaggerated sigh. "You're short 5,000. No full payment, no service. We don't bargain here." The old woman froze. Ethan saw her shoulders slump, her eyes clouded with the helplessness of a child unfairly scolded. "I thought it was enough. Maybe I counted wrong," she murmured, starting to dig through her purse again. Jaden waved her off. "Forget it. You're wasting other people's time." No one in the store spoke up. No one stood by the old woman to softly say that it was okay, that everything would be fine. Ethan stepped forward without a word and pulled a 20,000 bill from his wallet. "I'll cover the rest." Jaden glanced up, his expression cold and slightly annoyed. "If you want to play charity, be my guest. Just pick the right place next time. We don't run a juice for sympathy program here." Ethan didn't react. He simply nodded, eyes still on the elderly woman, Mrs. Ellie, as she gathered her coins again, her hands shaking so much she dropped one to the floor. It was then that the girl cleaning the juicer, Maya Lunn, quietly stepped up to the counter. She gently picked up the juice cup, added a napkin, and walked over to Mrs. Ellie. "Why don't you take a seat, Grandma? I'll bring your juice right over," Maya said softly, helping her to the table by the window. No show, no spotlight, just a quiet act, but one that made the heavy air inside the store vibrate like a string suddenly plucked. Ethan stood still, not in shock, but with the clarity of knowing he had just witnessed something no HR policy or branding strategy could ever teach. Genuine kindness. And right there, in that moment, he knew he was no longer a customer. He had returned not to inspect, but to change everything. The afternoon rain had long stopped, but streaks of water still clung to the floor, refusing to dry. Ethan sat silently in a small corner of the store, a glass of carrot orange juice untouched on the table. He pretended to be scrolling through his phone, but in truth, He didn't miss a single word. A breeze crept in through the half-open door, carrying with it the murmurs of the juicer, the dull clack of a cleaner's shoes, and the sharp, brittle exchanges from behind the counter. "Slow day again," Jaden's voice drifted from the register, stretched and full of boredom. "Old folks keep walking in asking for prices, then just leave. Give me a break." "Keep your voice down," a girl replied softly. Her name tag read Trang, probably a part-time employee. "What, did I say anything wrong?" Jaden shot back. "This is a juice bar, not a soup kitchen." Trang sighed and turned away. No one said anything. Everyone was used to Jaden's attitude, constantly irritated, never holding back when it came to criticizing customers. Ethan made a mental note. Arrogance becomes a habit when no one challenges it. At the far end of the counter, Maya Lin continued working as if nothing had happened. She was meticulously wiping down each juicer, sorting leftover fresh fruit by hand into trays, labeling them manually. No one had asked her to do it. No one offered to help. Ethan watched her more closely. Unlike the others, Maya didn't work just to get it over with. She cared for everything as if the store were her own. Yet her eyes betrayed exhaustion, not from the workload, but from the knowledge that no one cared about the effort she put in. About 10 minutes later, Ethan walked to the counter, posing as a stranger. He asked, "Excuse me, are you hiring here?" Jaden didn't bother to look up. "Apply on the website." Ethan gave a faint smile, nodded his thanks, and stepped toward the back, where an old menu board hung on the wall. A faint handwritten note read, "Priority for pre-orders. Orders not held if over 10 minutes late." He tapped on the board lightly, as if touching the indifference seeping through every corner of the store. Around 4 p.m., Maya washed her hands, dried them with a paper towel, and placed something into a worn tote bag. Ethan stepped into her path, gently but firmly. "Excuse me, may I ask you something?" Maya looked surprised. "Yes?" "Earlier, when you brought the juice to the old woman, why did you do that? It's not part of the service protocol." She hesitated, then looked him straight in the eyes. "Because I thought she needed it more than I needed to follow a rule. And I didn't want her to leave feeling humiliated over 5,000 dong." Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "And if that got you reprimanded, would you regret it?" She pressed her lips together, then shook her head. "No. I've emailed the area management 3 times about how the service here has strayed from its original values. No one responded, so now I choose to do the right thing, even if I'm the only one." Ethan remained silent. A swell of emotion rose within him. Pride, yes, but also pain. Maya had no idea who she was speaking to. She didn't need to. She was simply living up to what green seed used to represent, and was now losing. The next day, the sun was harsh. By 8:45 a.m., the store hadn't opened yet, but the staff were all present. Maya was setting tables. Jaden leaned against the wall, scrolling through TikTok. Trang yawned as she mopped the floor. At exactly 9:00 a.m., a man appeared at the order counter, simply dressed, but standing with a presence that refused to be ignored. He removed his sunglasses, pulled back his hoodie. All eyes turned to him. Jaden froze. Maya dropped the towel in her hand. Trang nearly fell off her chair. "Good morning," Ethan said, his voice low but commanding. "I'm Ethan Wells." Silence swallowed the room. He looked directly at Jaden. "And yesterday I was standing behind you when you refused to serve an elderly woman because she was short 5,000 dong." No one moved. No one knew where to look. But everything, from the tremble in Jaden's gaze to the clenched fists at Maya's sides, told Ethan all he needed to know. Today, he didn't have to pretend anymore. Outside the glass window, sunlight filtered through the tree canopy, casting scattered shadows onto the tiled floor. Inside Greenseed's Branch 24, the air felt thick, as if someone had just drained all the oxygen from the room. Every sound disappeared, leaving only the ticking of the wall clock and the hurried breathing of staff, unsure of what was unfolding. Jaden Cruz stood frozen behind the counter, still holding the unused cleaning cloth in his hand. Maya Lin gently set her mop aside, her gaze lowered to the floor, but her shoulders slowly straightened, an unconscious preparation for the change that was about to come. Ethan Wells didn't rush. He walked slowly toward the central table, where seasonal fruit combo boxes were usually displayed. He gently removed a promotional sign reading the faded slogan, "Only at Green Seed, clean juice, clean service, clean spirit." He turned around, his deep voice echoing through a space that was no longer just a juice bar, but a courtroom. I started Green Seed in a metal frame kiosk with a canvas roof by the train station in 2012. We didn't have air conditioning. We didn't have automatic juicers, but we had one thing: kindness. He looked at each of them in turn, his gaze not accusing but unyielding. And yesterday I saw this very place, once a symbol of something good, become a checkpoint of judgment, where people are measured by the clothes they wear and the money in their pockets. A soft ding rang out. The automatic door opened. A woman walked in wearing a white blouse and pencil skirt, holding a laptop and a stack of documents. Her eyes narrowed slightly upon seeing Ethan, but she walked straight up to him. "Excuse me, I'm Chloe Brooks, East Region Manager. I was told there was an urgent customer issue to address." Ethan turned to her, his face no longer the cordial one she'd seen in countless Zoom meetings. "You're not here to meet a customer. You're here to meet me." Chloe hesitated. "Ethan? I I didn't know you were—" "That's the problem. You didn't know," he cut in, voice calm. "You didn't know I was coming. Just like you don't know what happens here, day after day, under your own supervision." She opened her mouth to respond, but he raised a hand to stop her. "Let me tell you a few things your reports don't show." Ethan walked to the order counter, standing right where Jaden usually worked. He tapped lightly on the surface. "Yesterday, right here, your employee said to an elderly woman, 'If you don't have enough money, don't waste my time.' And when I covered her bill, he said, 'This isn't a charity station.'" Jaden's face went pale, his lips trembling. Chloe frowned, trying to maintain composure. "If that's true, then that is completely unacceptable. I will initiate internal action immediately." Ethan shook his head. "No, not if that's true. You'll watch the footage yourself from the store's security system. But before that, I have a question." He looked directly at Chloe. "When was the last time you visited this branch?" She faltered. I I check sales reports weekly through the system." "Not sales, people," he interrupted. "When was the last time you spoke to a frontline employee, heard their feedback directly?" Chloe fell silent. Ethan turned to Maya. "Ms. Lin, I believe you sent 3 emails to the operations office. Is that right?" Maya nodded hesitantly. "Yes, about the lack of staff training and how elderly customers were being mistreated." Ethan pressed on, his eyes still on Chloe. "Did she ever get a response?" Chloe swallowed hard. "Mush, it might have landed in the spam folder, or maybe I didn't get around to reading it." Ethan nodded slowly. He wasn't angry, but there was no forgiveness in his gaze. "Then let me ask one last time. Chloe, are you leading, or are you just chasing KPIs?" The room turned to ice. No one breathed. Jaden stared at the floor, sweat dripping from his temples. Finally, Ethan returned to the center table. He placed a white envelope on top, a formal internal reassignment notice. "Chloe, starting tomorrow, you'll be transferred to the frontline staff training department. I want you to personally retrain every employee so they understand that service is not just a procedure, it's a mindset." She nodded, stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then he turned to Jaden, his voice firmer. "You are suspended for 2 weeks. If you want to remain at Green Seed, you'll complete full retraining. If not, I won't hesitate to let you go." And lastly, he looked at Maya. No questions, no lectures, just a declaration. "Maya Lin, starting today, you are the acting manager of this branch. Operational authority, staff decisions, and service standards are now in your hands. You'll report directly to me." Maya stood frozen. "Me? But I'm just—" "The only one among you," Ethan said, "who chose what was right when no one else dared to." He turned away, saying nothing more. The glass doors opened. He stepped out into the blinding morning sun, but his eyes were the brightest of all, as if he had just removed a silent tumor from the very body he built with the best of intentions. 3 days after Ethan Wells' unannounced reckoning, Green Seed Branch 24 opened its doors to an unusually quiet morning. There was no scoffing laughter from behind the counter, no condescending glances at modestly dressed customers. Nothing had changed in the furniture, signage, or juicers, but anyone who stepped inside could feel it. This place was no longer the same. At the cashier's counter, a new sign had been neatly posted. We serve with our whole hearts. If you have any unpleasant experience, speak directly to the manager. I'm Maya Lin. Maya, now the acting manager, stood behind the counter with a completely different presence from 3 days ago. No longer the girl silently scrubbing juicers. Today, she wore a new name tag, a fresh uniform, and for perhaps the first time, entered her shift with the posture of someone who had a voice. But authority hadn't made her proud. It made her responsible. Maya began the morning with a small team huddle. She didn't recite rules or present a complex strategy. Instead, she retold the story of Mrs. Ellie, her voice slow and sincere, and asked each person in turn, "What kind of place do you want Green Seed to be?" She didn't force answers. But Trang, the part-time college student who usually kept her head down, was the first to speak. "I want customers to feel at ease when they come in, like they're walking into a place where they won't be judged." A new employee named Hung was more hesitant. "I just hope I can go home after work not feeling drained from a toxic atmosphere." Maya nodded. "Then today, let's start over. Let's begin with how we see our customers, not by the money they bring, but by how they walk in and need to be served." She didn't need slogans, just real people with real hearts. Ethan stood across the street, eyes fixed on the glass storefront. He wore his old hoodie again, sunglasses on, standing next to a small fruit cart, reminiscent of his early startup days. Only this time, he wasn't selling juice. He was just a stranger observing a familiar space come back to life. An elderly woman stepped inside, not Mrs. Ellie, but uncannily like her. Silver hair, a thin sweater, slow steps. Ethan held his breath. No one waved her off. No one glared. Trang rushed to open the door, beaming. "Grandma, we just finished a fresh watermelon batch. You like the low-sugar kind, right?" "Oh, how do you know that?" "Because the last time you came, you ordered it without ice. Next time I'll make a sugar-free batch just for you." Ethan smiled faintly. He stepped in afterward, queuing like any other customer. Maya saw him, recognized him, but gave nothing away. She simply asked, "What would you like today?" "The same thing I had the first time I came here. But this time," he paused, "it's going to taste different." Maya nodded without a word, but her eyes sparkled with gratitude, not for the opportunity she was given, but for the fact that someone had trusted her with authority and stepped back at the right moment. Ethan sat at the window-side table, not to eavesdrop this time, but to quietly witness. He saw Jaden enter, hair trimmed, uniform crisp. He approached Maya not with his usual arrogance, but just enough resolve to say, "I finished the retraining. I know I was wrong. If you still want me here, I'm ready to start over." Maya didn't answer right away. She looked to Ethan. He didn't move. She turned back and said, "We don't keep old employees, but if you're someone new, welcome." Jaden bowed his head, then quietly went to clean the juicer. A young mother walked in carrying a child. She hesitantly asked, "Do you have anything low sugar? My baby's allergic." Trang, who had been tidying the counter, looked up. "Yes, ma'am, I've set aside banana and almond milk. No syrup, I promise." Ethan closed his eyes. He didn't need to see more. Green Seed had returned, not because he showed up, but because some people quietly preserved its original spirit, even when no one was watching. He stood up to leave. Maya stepped out behind him and asked softly, "Mr. Wells, will you be coming back again?" Ethan smiled lightly. "When needed, I will. But I hope I won't have to." He stepped into the sun. The sound of the juicer hummed steadily behind him. But this time it didn't sound mechanical and cold. It sounded human. The following week, Ethan Wells did not return to Greenseed Branch 24. Not because he forgot, but because he was busy, quietly listening. He had asked the operations department to send all customer feedback data after the incident at that branch. Tables, stats, graphs, all pointed to the same conclusion. A 320% spike in positive reviews within 5 days. But Ethan didn't care much for numbers. He read every single word. Yesterday, I brought my 82-year-old mother here. No one glared. No one sighed. Just a girl who asked, would you like more ice or less? I've been a long-time Green Seed customer, but I thought I'd never come back. And yet today, seeing an employee hold a baby for a young mom so she could drink her juice with both hands, I knew Green Seed had returned. Ethan closed his laptop and sat still by the office window. Outside was a small courtyard where he once grew mint and perilla leaves for the Garden Drop juice line back in 2015. He picked up his phone and made a call. Maya answered after one ring. Hello, Mr. Wells. Hello, Maya, he said slowly. I just finished reading the feedback. You've done well. It was the whole team, she replied calmly, though Ethan could hear the slight tremble in her voice. Not from fear, but humility. I'd like to officially offer you the role of permanent manager, but not just at Branch 24. Silence. Ethan continued. I want to start a new program. We'll call it Keepers of Kindness. Each region will nominate one employee, no resume needed, no past experience, just someone who chose to do the right thing when silence would have been easier. I want you to lead it. I don't know if I'm qualified. You are, Ethan replied without hesitation, because you don't think you are. A longer silence followed. Then Maya let out a soft laugh, no longer hiding it. So, when do we start? Right now. A week later, at the company-wide meeting, Ethan stepped onto the stage in a simple gray suit. Unlike before, this time he didn't talk about quarterly goals or the next big marketing campaign. He told a story about an elderly woman named Ellie, about a staff member named Jaden, about a young woman named Maya Lynn, and about a wealthy man sitting in the back who stayed silent until he knew it was time to do what was right. He never mentioned he was the CEO. He spoke as a witness. At the end of the talk, he placed a juice cup on the table, the very first one he had bought during his return to Branch 24, still full, untouched. This juice is no longer cold, he said, but I've kept it not for the taste. I've kept it for the moment I saw a staff member kneel down, help an elderly woman find her balance, and place the juice in front of her with both hands. The room fell silent. Ethan looked around, meeting each person's eyes. I want every branch to have someone like that. Someone who dares to protect kindness, even when no one sees, no one praises, and no KPI can measure it. He lifted the cup. We are Green Seed, not because of the color green, but because of the seeds we plant in other people's hearts. Then he stepped off the stage, leaving the juice cup under the spotlight. No one drank it. No one cleared it away. They left it there as a symbol, a reminder that some drops of juice are not meant to quench thirst, but to awaken.